I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside. It's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off-road. The guy managed the group. He was like, what are you doing in this beautiful car? I'm like, I'm going off-road. He's like, are you sure? Because you can use one of ours. And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability, as well as its robust interior, are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show on the Stansberry Radio Network.
This is James Altucher I always say it's a very special James Altucher show because all of them are really special to me. But this one actually is special because my guest, and I'll introduce her in a second, my guest is Claudia. Actually, I'll say hi. Claudia, how are you doing?
Hi, James. Happy to be here.
Claudia is my wife. And instead of having like the normal guests that I usually have, Claudia, not that you're abnormal or anything.
I think I am, actually.
Maybe you are because you married me, but maybe most people can say that about their husbands and wives.
Maybe they can.
But I kind of wanted to describe a little bit more. I wanted the tables turned on me. So Claudia, who knows me better than some people, is going to interview me and basically, talk about...
Dig in.
Yes, dig in and how I chose myself and why I'm really doing this podcast and why I think it can help people, why I want to help people, and why I think you can choose yourselves too, and what benefits there are. That's a big list of things, Claudia. You're gonna have
That's a very big list, and no pressure on me or anything like that. Not that you're making an outline or anything, or I'm totally free to interview you. But of course, what I'm going to do is just listen to you say yeah, and then just do whatever I want.
Yes,
so
go for it.
Let's just start with, there is this sentence that I've heard a lot of times in your talks, and you say, I was going to die. This is it's something that I've heard you say many times, and I want to know, why were you going to die?
It sounds like you're laughing there. Like, are you laughing at the thought of me dying?
I am laughing, actually, yes, because I don't believe you're going to die now, but I do believe...
I promise in my will I've left you all of my $2 bills. So
yeah, you better. I like those.
If I die, you can have all of them. I think I have like 3,000 $2 bills. So... I kind of think that even if the dollar goes down, the $2 bill will retain its value just for like collectible sake. But okay, so I wrote that because, and it comes up a lot. I mean, it's happened to me a couple of times, and maybe other people can relate to this. I'll talk about one situation specifically. In 2001, I essentially lost all of my money. And it wasn't like how you lose money in the dot-com crash, like you had money on paper and then now suddenly was worth nothing. Like I had millions and millions of dollars cash.
How many millions did you have?
Well, are you like a gold digger trying to?
I am actually. Yes, I'm very interested in the number.
Well, the good thing for me is, and I'm not bragging, is that it went to total zero. But I started this period with about $15 million in cash, and I ended this period of my life with literally there was $143 in the ATM machine. Like I could not get any money out of the bank, and I'll get to that in a second. But there came a point when I realized, you know what, I really screwed up, and there was no way out. Like I couldn't figure out a way out. So and you might wonder, how did I lose all this money? You don't really lose money by spending it, although I certainly did a lot of that. Like I bought a big house, I was traveling a lot, I bought artwork, but I was also just investing in a lot of bad companies. So I had sold a company that I'd worked really, really hard on. Like, I mean, it was 100 hours a week that I worked on this company, and I sold it, and I wanted to, and I sold it for a good amount of money, and I thought, okay, this is great. I'm a really smart genius now.
I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done as a human being, but I still wanted more. Like I felt like, you know what, 15 million is not enough. I want 100 million. And I don't know why I thought that. That was like.
But let me get this straight, because here I need to stop you for a minute. You sold this company, you wanted more, but you had $15 million in cash.
Yes, cash.
And then you remember seeing $143 in your ATM machine. That number. You remember that number.
Yeah, so that number I saw in 2002.
And how long did it take you between the time you had 15 million to go to 143?
That was about a year and a half. But the bulk of the money I lost in the summer of 2001, I lost about $1 million a week. Essentially, I thought I was like a stock market genius, even though I had zero experience in the stock market at that time.
What did you do? What did you do to lose that kind of money? Did you fly private jets?
I did fly private jets occasionally. But
did you gamble?
I did gamble.
Did you go to prostitutes?
No, I didn't go to any prostitutes, but I did for a while. I did separate from my wife, who's now my ex-wife. You're my current wife, and
I'm glad you clarified that.
And so I started moving around in like different hotels and.
What kind of hotels were you going to? Were you going to like the YMCA?
Yeah. No, I was going to very nice hotels.
Which one? Which one?
But you know what? That's not how you lose money. Like, it doesn't matter. If you spend $1,000 a night, you're not going to lose $15 million that way. So what you're going to do...
So how do you lose money?
So you know, what happened is that I ended up thinking I was a genius. I figured, oh my gosh, I made $15 million. I'm in New York City, and, there's that Frank Sinatra song, if I can make it here, I can make it anywhere.
King of the world.
Yeah, so I started investing in companies, in stocks, and, of course, the dot-com crash did happen. So I did I don't know why it's called this. It's called the Texas hedge. So I hedged all my stock that I had, so I made all this cash, and then I threw it right back into internet stocks and started to lose everything. And I built a huge house, and I couldn't afford that anymore. So I was losing my...
Is this your Tribeca place?
Yeah, so it was a huge...
How big was that?
So it was a 4,500 square foot or 5,000 square foot penthouse apartment in, the best area of New York. And
did it have one floor or two floors?
Well, one floor, but it was the whole floor of a building, so the elevator opened up into it. It's not... Again, that was bad. What was bad about that was that once I had lost all my money, is that I then had to keep up this lifestyle. So after I'd lost like 95% of my money, the final 5%, it was already too late for me because... 9/11 happened. I couldn't sell my house. So it was just like almost like a guarantee that I was going to lose my house because I had no job. I had no money. And my expenses were about $50,000 or $60,000 a month. And so there's no reason to feel sorry for me because this was all ridiculous. Like I was a total idiot.
And in the middle of all of this, so you are like broke. You have this incredible place in Tribeca. You need to come up with $60,000 a month, and 9/11 happens.
Yeah, so it was even worse. Like, I had moved out. I had separated from my ex. And, I mean, I don't want to say it was worse than 9/11 because that was obviously very horrible. And I lived right next to the World Trade Center, and that's a whole story. But I moved out of my ex. I actually fell in love with somebody else, and which I had never revealed before. Claudia, I never even revealed that before to you. So
I am actually quite shocked. I just went silent, and I'm not sure I can breathe here. Who is this person you fell in love with?
Doesn't matter for the purposes of this podcast.
Is it an actress? Is it someone famous?
No one famous. So
is it somebody I know?
No. So, but the whole thing is that then I was going broke, and I couldn't support my family, and I couldn't support this house that I had moved in. So I basically had to end everything and move back in. After 6 months leaving, I had to move back into my house.
But wait! You're going way too fast here. You just told me you fell in love with another woman. What happened there? You can't just leave me hanging. What did you do with the woman? I mean, I know everything was chaos, but what happened with the woman?
Well, first, let me just say I separated before that happened.
You did say that you separated before that happened. That's true.
And then I had to end it because I had no money, and my whole sense of self-worth, my worthiness as a human being at that time was so tied up in my net worth. And not only that, I didn't want, I had a family that I thought was set for life, but I didn't want them to go bankrupt. So I had to end it, and I moved back in to my house, and I lost everything. So I continued to lose everything. 9/11 happened.
How did that feel? How were you feeling? Were you depressed?
Oh, my God. I was so depressed. I mean...
Were you crying?
Let me just explain. I was just... Crying was like the least of it. Like, I lost about 40 pounds. And so I think I went from about 150 pounds to about... 120 pounds. Like, even my mother, who weighs like 80 pounds, was like, oh my gosh, you look like you're from a concentration camp. So I couldn't eat. I was feeling really suicidal because every aspect of my life I felt was over. And I thought to myself, my kids would be better off with my life insurance policy than they would be with a dad. So they weren't really old enough to have formed a strong kind of bond with me. Like, kids, they don't really care about anything. I mean, we don't know, but they don't really care about anything until a certain age. It's not like I was playing checkers and giving life advice to my kids at this point. They were little kids.
How old were your kids then?
Well, my oldest was about 3, and my youngest had yet to be born. So, because
so they didn't know any better. They couldn't make any judgment.
Fortunately, I got back together with my ex, so my youngest could be born. I love both my kids, but but I really thought that it would be better for me to kill myself than and they could benefit. Then my ex, who we didn't really have such a great relationship anyway, she could marry somebody else, hopefully someone much better than me because I was such a lousy person. And again, because I was tying my self-worth with my net worth, and she could this great new husband she would have could be the father of these kids, and they would have I had a $4 million life insurance policy at the time, and they could benefit from that. And I was able to get such a good life insurance policy because I had so much money then. So before anyone realized I was totally broke, I could just kill myself, trigger the suicide clause. The suicide clause, every life insurance policy, you can't commit suicide for the first year, but I had already gone past that year. So
you were safe.
Yeah, I was safe. And so I would Google how can I kill myself, and I would even talk to people about it. And it turns out, there's no real safe way to kill yourself.
Are you sure of that?
Yeah, well, tell me a method you would use to kill yourself.
I don't know. I would think there has to be a method where you can take some cocktail of some sort that slowly puts you to sleep and eventually kicks in.
Okay, you would think that, but that totally 100% depends on your body chemistry, your genetics, your metabolism. And so the likely outcome of doing some sort of cocktail that you make up in your Kevorkian nightmares, the likely outcome is that you end up waking up brain damaged in the hospital and never able to move again.
You really thought this out? You really researched this?
I looked up every possible cocktail you could take. Now, of course, many people kill themselves this way, but also you don't really see the full numbers. Many people end up ODing and in a hospital and sick for many, many years, if not the rest of their life, or paralyzed or whatever. You could go paralyzed from taking a bad cocktail of drugs. The same thing with shooting yourself in the head. Shooting yourself in the head. I know one guy, I literally know this guy. He shot himself he put the gun in the mouth, the same way Ernest Hemingway did it. He put the gun in his mouth, he shot out his left eye and half his brain, and he was paralyzed, and he ended up living. So
basically he was an idiot. He aimed wrong.
He aimed the way he thought. It's not like you can practice this. So, it's he ended up marrying his nurse. So his life is like, I don't know if you call that okay or whatever, but it's
a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, whatever.
Of sorts.
I'd rather not have that.
Guess.
I'd rather not have that blessing. The other thing you could do is you could jump off a bridge that's really high, and many people do that. Claudia, you and I know somebody who has done that very tragically. But. You know what? First off.
What about? I mean, if you had.
Well, let me just talk about the bridge thing, because that's how a lot of people do try to kill themselves. Is that you could? What I was afraid of is I'm afraid of heights. So I was really afraid of that final few. You still have to live those final few seconds, and I was terrified of being afraid of heights. But also, what if you change your mind on the way down? You're jumping off this bridge, and you're thinking.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
what can I hold on to?
Yeah, this is not good anymore. So there's really no way to do it. So I'm on the floor and crying and depressed, I couldn't get out of bed. And
did you actually attempt something?
No, because I had a child, and there was no, and I was almost too depressed to do anything. I couldn't move out of bed. I was just depressed. I had really kind of, it just sucked, everything. And again, this is I almost want to call this white people problems. Oh, poor him. He lost $15 million and now he's feeling bad and he was a lousy person. But, okay, this is what happened to me. And I had started a really good business. A lot of people actually made money because of this business. And I created some value because of this business. And I was proud of it. And I squandered it. And, one thing that happened was, so I lost my home. And on the weekend before I lost my home, I had to move out. I had to move 75 miles north to a place, 1/5 the size. It's practically a shack. And
in the town where we live now.
Yes, but in a different part of the town.
Yes.
So now we live here because we're close to my kids. I'm divorced, and my kids still live here. They don't live in the shack. They live in a different house too. But the weekend before, I realized I had absolutely no money. I had zero money. And I was honestly scared I wouldn't be able to afford, there could be a chance I wouldn't be able to afford food or diapers or anything. Now, I knew I was going to have a little bit of money come my way the next week. And so I called up my parents and said, hey, can I borrow, I'll drive down, 100 miles where you are, and can I borrow a few $100s and for the weekend, and then on Monday, just 3 or 4 days later, I'm going to drive back down and I will return a few $100s to you. No problem.
How much money did you ask them for?
I asked him for $1,000 actually. So, because I don't know why felt like I needed $1,000 for diapers and food, but that was again still the mentality I was living. Like, oh my gosh, like all I need is $1,000. That still could be considered a lot of money, but that's what I felt I needed to borrow to survive the weekend. So like $1,000 for diapers and
you
baby
were
food.
flying high. Yeah, you were still flying high.
Well, my brain was, yeah,
right.
So, but my parents said no, and they said, we put you through college, which was actually not true. I paid for my own college, but that's another story. But they said no for whatever reason. I don't know what their plan was or what their thinking was, but I got upset and I hung up the phone. And I figured, you know what? I've got really serious things to deal with. I can't deal with arguing with them. They called me back, and they tried to talk to me, but I wouldn't pick up. And
Did they offer you less money?
No. They said not a dime. And over the next 6 months, I think my dad felt bad, and he tried to contact me. Like I had gone on TV at one point. He wrote me an email saying I did a nice job. He tried calling me, tried emailing me, and then he died. So that hang
He died suddenly?
No. That hang up was the last time I spoke to him. So what happened was he then had a stroke, and I sort of feel like if I had the money, if I had just been smart and just simply put the money in the bank and been like a normal human being, I could have maybe cured him of what afflicted him when he had the stroke. There's all sorts of different types of strokes. There's all sorts of different types of treatment. He ultimately got off insurance and essentially ended up on some kind of Medicare, and I couldn't help him at all. I had no money, and all I could do was just sit there, and he was in a sort of semi-coma where he would just stare at the ceiling. So I remember he was really into chess, just like I am. He had taught me when I was a kid. So I hung up on his ceiling. I blew up a poster-sized image of a chess position that he could figure out, like a problem that he could figure out. I put one on the ceiling, I put one on the door, I put them on the walls, but he was mostly just lying in bed staring at the ceiling. So, but he never spoke, he never moved, nothing. And I figured I would put these up there so maybe he could at least think about things. That was the only thing I could do for him.
Did you ever get a sense that maybe he was at some point trying to communicate with you? Did you ever get any feeling from him, or was he really gone?
I honestly don't know. The doctors and nurses said he was completely gone. I felt like maybe there was something there, but maybe it was just wishful thinking. I don't know. So
do you blame yourself a bit? Do you feel guilty about this situation?
Yeah, I did, because I felt like if I had the money in the bank, there's like these weird strategies where you could put them in a spinning machine, and that kind of wakes up some of their neurons and reconnects some of the synapses. And I was researching all these kind of alternative strategies, but ultimately I couldn't do anything for him, and they were mistreating him. Like, they lost his glasses, then they would drop him on the floor, then he would have bed sores. And a bed sore is where they don't move you on the bed, so your skin essentially rots away to the bone, and it just wasn't good. And then eventually he just had a heart attack and died, because you can't just function like that.
But do you think you can? I mean, because all of this that you're telling me is horrible. And so if you were feeling guilty at the time, or maybe you could have had the possibility to save him, quote unquote.
I was.
Do you find that you've been able to forgive yourself?
Yes, because there was nothing I could do. And you know what I realized too, and I'll get to more of this, but the problem that happened to me, and this doesn't excuse me, but look, this is just life. Nobody can be everyone's hero. And so, my dad also was a drinker. He was an eater. He had his stroke while he was arguing with somebody. He was getting himself into massive amounts of debt. So I can't take responsibility for everything that happens to everybody around me, even the people I love. I can do the best I can do, and now I try every day to do the best I could do. The only thing that could make me a success now is if I have a successful day today. So that means I'm healthy today and doing the best I can do for the people around me today, not yesterday and not tomorrow. And the best indicator of a successful tomorrow is a successful today. That's the only indicator. Because
That's very true.
I don't even know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow. Like anything that we're doing today is something that somebody in the course of history has died while doing. So you and I are having a conversation. Certainly people have died while having a conversation. They've had a heart attack and died. I just ate lunch. Certainly many people my age have died. Many healthy people my age have died while having lunch.
What is your age, by the way?
My age is 46, the same as your age. You're 1 month younger than me.
Well, thanks for saying that out in the open without consulting or anything.
I'm going to call you out.
Just go ahead, Do that to any woman. They're going to love you for it.
Okay, but anybody looking at your picture knows that you look like you're 25.
Yeah. But now, let me ask you a question. You say your father was actually doing some practices in his own life that weren't very healthy. Do you think that in a way you were perhaps repeating the pattern a little bit in your own life?
Yeah, so I felt like, so my dad, when he was, he had a software company just like I did. His company went public, just like mine sort of did. I sold to a public company. And then he went broke, and then he got depressed. And he had a nervous breakdown, actually, where he was just crying all the time. And, it was really sad to see it happen to him. And he got divorced from his first wife. He had a child with his first wife. And I felt very much like I was repeating his pattern. And I thought I was doomed to have a stroke and die, or get depressed and spend the rest of my life sitting in a chair listening to music until I had a stroke. But I know for a fact, by living with you, that is not the case today for you as a 46 healthy. No, everything's great.
But what changed? What was it that you? What was it then?
So. It's really interesting because the exact same situation didn't happen to me just once. I described to you just one situation where I made a lot of money and then I lost it all and so on. The exact same situation happened to me again. Actually, it happened to me 2 more times. One was sort of a mini time where I made a good chunk of money but then lost it all. And then I built up another business, stockpicker.com, sold it to thestreet.com. I sold it for $10 million to thestreet.com. I bought a new house. I bought a big house. And the next thing you know, I was told,
you had $10 million in the bank again, and you went ahead and bought another huge house again.
No, I had partners on the $10 million business, so I had a few $1 million. But yes, then I bought a big house. I thought I was, there it goes. I'm slapping my hands again. Like
king of the world. Did you start gambling again?
No.
Private planes, hotels?
Yes. So not quite in the same way. I didn't have as much, but I definitely became like much more arrogant. I definitely, so again, let's just put it this way. Again, I found myself on the floor contemplating suicide, losing my house, and this time I really was losing my family. So I separated from my ex-wife and never got back together with her after that, which, of course, has worked out for the best. Like, I fell in love with a lovely young lady named Claudia, and we got married, and everything is great. We're doing this podcast together. But, this happened to me, I want to say, either big or small. It happened to me on about 4 or 5 occasions where I made a lot. I felt like, wow, this is great. I'm done as a human being. Like, I achieved my quote-unquote goal. And then, bam, right from that point, I lost it all. So I did it so many times, it was almost like statistically significant. And you know, and
I guess if it happens 3 times in your life, you're beyond the third time is a charm. You were on the path to complete disaster. You were a train wreck.
Yeah, I was a train wreck, and I thought, like, oh my God, I'm getting older too. Like, how am I going to figure this out? Like,
Were you drinking?
I was drinking every night. I was total alcoholic.
How alcoholic? Like seriously, like sleeping on the street?
Yeah, like one time, a situation, I was on a date with someone I had just met, and I got so drunk, I was practically unconscious at the bar, and then I remember we were like walking past the intersection of 3rd Avenue and 50th Street towards the hotel I was staying at, and I just fell down and I fell asleep in the middle of the intersection, and it's raining, and cars were swerving all around. And
was she with you?
Yeah, this girl literally had to like pull me out of the street before our car.
Did she take you to the hotel?
No, I was just, I think she was disgusted with me. So I literally was in the lobby of the Waldorf Astoria, like projectile vomiting.
Oh my God.
And guards were like, holy sorry, you could bleep that. And I was laughing and vomiting and just like making my way up to my room.
Did you poo on yourself too, or just vomiting?
I did not. You
did not. Okay, no, just vomiting.
But
how did you get to your room? Did people grab you? And
no, I had the room number on the key. So, the Waldorf Astoria was my hotel of choice. Then they all knew me, and then I never went back there again because it was too humiliated. Like, it was years later. Yeah. You and I finally went back, but we went back for your birthday last year. This was nice.
Yeah, and nobody recognized you, which was a good thing.
No one recognized me. Probably a whole change in staff because I definitely repulsed. They had my photograph up on the wall next to Conrad Hilton or whoever.
Unwanted person.
So, but what I saw though was very, very important. Through all of this, there was a common pattern of when I was successful, and there was a common pattern of when I lost everything. So, and I'll just get right to it. The common pattern when I was most successful, and I'm 46 now. I've been doing this since I was 40 or 41, and it's amazing. And literally, my life changes almost 100% every 6 months. And you've seen it, Claudia. You're like the only common thing that has been around every 6 months. Everything else has changed every 6 months for the better.
And your daughters have been around too.
And my daughters. Of course, they change. But my relationship,
they have been growing,
but
yes.
My relationship with them gets better. And not that it was ever bad, but, it evolves and improves, and I love them very much. But the critical thing that I started doing was I started being healthy. And that doesn't mean I was going to the gym and like lifting weights and suddenly being healthy, because that's not real health. That's like gym health. But and I don't want to put that down. Like, a lot of people love going to the gym and it's useful. But really what I meant was I was sleeping well. So instead of sleeping 3 hours a night and being real anxious the other like 8 hours a night or whatever, I would make sure I would sleep at least 8 or 9 hours a night. 1/3 of your life at least should be spent sleeping. Because
how did you do that? Did you drink before you went to sleep, or did you started? Were you not sleeping before, or?
Yeah, I was not sleeping before. I was too anxious, and drinking is really bad for sleep because it puts you to sleep, but then you have so much sugar in you from the alcohol that you pop awake at like 2 a.m, which is the worst time because that's when you're incredibly anxious. So I would not only would wake up from this like sugar high, but I would be incredibly anxious. So I stopped alcohol because alcohol also is a depressant. So I was already depressed and I was drinking alcohol to numb the depression, but then I'd end up waking up even more anxious and depressed. So I stopped drinking. Sleep is the most important thing for rejuvenating brain cells. So if you want to be creative and have new ideas and so on, you have to make sure you sleep 8 or 9 hours. Anybody who tells me, oh, I only need 5 hours of sleep a night or I only need 3 hours of sleep a night, they're either lying or they have some kind of disability that hasn't surfaced yet, but will surface, because sleep hygiene is very important. No screen time after 6 p.m. I usually try, you and I both, we usually try to avoid eating after 6 p.m.
Well, I will say that was a little bit of a battle to get you to not turn the iPad ever on the bedroom.
Yeah, and it's
let's acknowledge that.
Yeah,
it wasn't easy.
It wasn't easy, right? Because it's very important to look, and this is no joke. Like, this is your life. Before you're born, there was infinity. There was a huge amount there was 13 billion years before you're born, and I guarantee you, after you die, there's even more than 13 billion years where you're dead. So you're only alive for this tiny, short amount of time. And so you want to make sure it's the highest possible quality amount of time you could find. So
you do, yes.
So sleep. So okay. Physically healthy really means sleep well, eat well, and everybody knows what that means. I don't have to describe it. You know what it is. When you're about to eat 5 donuts, you're not eating well, and that's an extreme. I'm sure you know in other cases when you're not eating well. But everybody's diet's different. I'm not going to try to dictate anyone's diet. My own personal diet is, you and I both, we try to go as paleo as possible. So essentially, all that means is as few carbs as possible. But
and that has worked very well for us, by the way.
Yeah, I've lost a ton of weight. I feel good. My metabolism's better. But again, diets are different for everybody. The key thing is, eat well. So sleep well, eat well, and some amount of exercise. And again, it doesn't mean run a marathon. It might mean take a 20-minute walk 3 times a week. And on my blog, I even posted a picture, or I think in my newsletter, I posted a picture of what the brain activity looks like before and after a 20-minute walk. And the brain just lights up. Neurons are talking to each other, synapses are forming, serotonin is bursting through you, and life is just better when you're exercised.
What is your current routine of what do you do daily now as a physical part?
Well, I do a lot of walking and I do a lot of push-ups. So I keep, muscle building is good for metabolism. When you do push-ups, again, it's not like lifting weights in a gym, but you are lifting a good chunk.
How many push-ups do you do?
I don't know, as much as I can. I don't really.
You do look good, I have to say. I like your muscles.
There you go. So, and then, okay, so that's physical health. Then I'm going to talk about emotional health, mental health, and spiritual health. It's these 4 things I try to check the box on every single day without fail.
This is what you call the daily practice, isn't it?
Right. And I call it not like the daily, or I call it not the cure or the secret or anything like that, because for me, it's a practice. If I don't do it for, let's say, 2 days in a row, I start feeling worse. And let me finish describing what it is. So emotionally, I hang out with, I eliminated anybody in my life who I felt was draining energy from me. So it's not as if I was callous, that I'm going to be callous if a friend needs help. I'm going to help them because, that's part of being a good friend and being emotionally healthy. But if someone in general is draining on me, they're out of my life. It's a 1 strike and you're out. And because, again, life's too short. I want to be around people who I love and respect, and who love and respect and support me, in my ideas and so on. Mental health. I don't mean sanity, but I mean, and I've talked about this before. I've written about this before. So Claudia, feel free to ask questions on this stuff. But everybody's got an idea muscle.
Thank you, by the way, for giving me the freedom to ask questions.
Yes, you're welcome. So everybody's got an idea muscle, and this muscle will atrophy as fast as any other muscle. So if you're in a bicycle accident and you're in a hospital bed for 2 weeks, you're going to actually need physical therapy to walk again because your leg muscles have atrophied so much. And the idea muscle is the same way. So what I do is I write down without fail 10 to 20 ideas a day. It could be ideas about anything. It doesn't have to be business ideas. It could be book ideas. It could just be ideas of, things I want to do to improve my life. Could be anything. Just make sure, the first 5 ideas are easy. But then to get to 10, you're going to actually feel your brain sweating. And after 6 months of doing this, you're going to be an idea machine. Like no matter where you look, no matter who's talking to you, no matter what you're reading, you're going to have a nonstop flowing of ideas. It's amazing.
I have to say, I've actually experienced the idea machine, and I don't have a specific case in point right now, but whereby, say, for example, we were on the way to the airport and the flight gets canceled. And because my idea machine is not as exercised perhaps as yours, I've seen you solve problems, like book us in another flight, redirect within the same cost without having to pay extra money and going to the same destination at the same time. I've seen you do magic because of it. I just want to say I'm a witness to the magic of the power of the idea machine and how, as you say, the ideas have sex too.
Yeah, so often people ask me, and first of all, I'll comment on that plane thing. So it's not just ideas for businesses. If you're stuck, let's say your car breaks down in the middle of the highway in a desert, okay, suddenly you'll have ideas instantly how to get yourself out of the situation. So ideas come all the time, and it works. But on business ideas or book ideas or creative ideas, people ask me, well, do you look back on your ideas or how do you execute on your ideas? So what often happens is that I always throw out the old ideas because the idea of this practice is not to have great ideas. You could have many bad ideas. You should have mostly bad ideas or else you're not taking enough risks. But often when you combine 2 ideas, that's when you get a phenomenal idea. So as a great example, Google is a combination. Google wasn't the first search engine. It was like the 12th search engine. But they combined normal search engines with the same method used that academics use to rank papers based on how many people are citing a paper. That paper ranks higher. So they combined that idea with search and they created Google. Scotch tape is a combination between adhesive paper and some kind of gluey substance. So it's really the combination.
So that's idea sex.
Yes, that's idea sex, and you should always take old ideas and combine them with new to come up with the most unique ideas on the planet. And that's a really great exercise. So it's a really great exercise to make your list of ideas yesterday and then make your list of ideas today and then tomorrow see how they combine in idea sex. So that's one particular idea. The other question is, how do you execute on the ideas? Well, execution itself is an idea. People always say ideas are a dime a dozen, execution is everything. That's totally not true because most ideas are really bad. And even most ideas I come up with are really bad. So execution itself is, coming up with ideas how to get things done. And so often what I'll do is make 2 columns. The first column is an idea. The second column will be what's the very next step. And if
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah, so when I was making stockpicker.com, for instance, I had the idea, and then the very next step was I spec'd it out. Here's the list of things. Here's the list of 10 ideas of what will be on the front page. And then the very next idea after that, here's how I can get this done. Like, I'm not going to program it myself, but here's all the ways I can outsource it to get this idea done. And then suddenly, within a week, I had sketches of the site. I didn't have the site done, but I had sketches of the site. It looked good. And then about 3 weeks after that, I had the first draft of the site. And 6 months after that, I sold the business for $10 million.
But I will call you on this here because this is very interesting. You just told me a situation in which you went down the line into one idea. And I remember one time me coming up with an idea and trying to go profoundly and you stopping me cold and going, oh, no. That's not the way you think. First, you must list all your options. How is that different?
It's the same thing. So and what you're referring to actually is there's a classic book called Think Like a Grandmaster, written in the 1950s by a Russian chess grandmaster. And he said, when you're looking at a chess position, don't get obsessed with one particular 6 moves ahead line that you have to analyze. First, just identify what all of your possible moves are. And that's what I do. So when I was making StockPicker.com, I actually was making 10 websites simultaneously, because there's no way to know in advance what business is going to work. It's really hard. And every business does what's called pivoting. So every business changes. You have to be very flexible about changing your ideas when you're running a business. And so I did the same thing. I came up with many ideas for businesses, and I came up with many first steps. I actually created about 10 different websites, and StockPicker.com was the one that really took off. And then I kept adding ideas for more and more features for it, and it built into a great site with millions of users.
And you sold StockPicker.com the day you spec'd it, didn't you?
In my mind, I did. Yes, I knew. I kind of had an idea how it was going to happen, but I will save that for another story. But that is the idea muscle, and I think some people focus on that as the most important part, but it's not. Like if you had a
it's the most exciting part.
It's the most exciting part because you say to yourself, I could come up with an idea that I'm going to sell for $10 million.
But some people say, I can't do that. And I've told you, I can't come up with 10. And sometimes you tell me, what do you say to that?
Well, if you'll be at the 5 point and like, I can't come up with another idea. And then I'll say, okay, you have to come up with 20 ideas.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Because the problem is, people think every idea has to be good. So you have to give yourself permission to come up with lots of bad ideas. Like the key is exercising the idea muscle. It's not coming up with the idea that's going to make $10 million. The key is just exercising that idea muscle. And again, it is the most exciting part, and it's the one that people ask me the most questions about. But this is a 4-legged chair of health: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And if you lose one leg on a 4-legged chair, then any burst of wind, your chair is going to fall over. And if you lose 2 legs on that chair, you're going to just fall over. So the idea muscle is the mental portion of this. It's just one leg of a 4-legged chair. The spiritual part, which is the last part, a lot of people hate that word spiritual. I hate it actually. Because I think it's like I know you don't. You're a yoga instructor. It's more common in the language there. But I think in the business world, people think the word spiritual is like, I don't need to be spiritual. I'm a good guy. But all it really means is be deeply grateful every day. Be creatively grateful every day. So every day, all day long, if I'm ever feeling anxious, and I get anxious all the time, whenever I'm feeling anxious, I catch myself, I'm feeling anxiety. And then I take a step back and I say to myself, think 10 things that I'm grateful for that I haven't thought about before. So, for instance, the very first time I did this, I was grateful for you, Claudia, and I was grateful for my kids and so on. But after that, I always have to think of new things to be grateful for. And it really, gratitude and anxiety.
What's an obscure thing you found to be grateful for in your explorations of gratitude?
I might be grateful if I'm stuck in traffic, because this is fantastic. I'm stuck in traffic, so I have an excuse if I'm late for a meeting, and I get to sit here by myself, which is wonderful, and listen to whatever music I want. Like, you hate all my music, so I get to listen to whatever music I want. So you're
grateful I'm not there, basically.
Yeah, and not only that, I'm grateful there's no police there, because I don't even have a driver's license. So I get thrown in jail instantly if the police stop me. But so the
great idea to announce that to the world, by the way. No,
I write about that all the time. No policemen listen to my podcast, I think. So fortunately, gratitude's a muscle like the idea muscle, like any other muscle. Like, you have to be grateful every day. And here's the other thing that people don't realize. And Claudia, we encountered this. We were going to give a workshop at a spiritual retreat. I won't name which one. And I wanted the title to be from spirit to success. And they wouldn't let me use that title. They said, our audience doesn't like the word success. And I'm like, what? And they said, yeah, you can't use the word success. And I said, that's BS, because people who are spiritual have to pay the bills. We live in a country where money, you have to support yourself. And everybody's losing their jobs right now. Like, this is a crazy economy. Like, this is, we live in an economy that is undergoing enormous transformation, more than it has ever done in the past century. And more than ever, you have to do what I call choose yourself. And so you have to follow this daily practice, and you have to use it to build the foundation of the house you're eventually going to build. And that you have to build, because the gatekeepers are all going away. If you look at the employment numbers, and I'm going straight from spirituality to government employment numbers, but if you look at the employment numbers, employment is still at a roughly bad number. But what's happening is part-time employment is shooting up like nothing else. So real unemployment or underemployment, where people have jobs that they don't like, or where they took demotions, real underemployment is probably around 20 or 30%, and part-time is just shooting up. People don't know how to choose themselves. They don't know how to get healthy and strike out on their own and have ideas.
So if I hear you right, what you're saying is success is spiritual, and success resides in choosing yourself.
Yeah, and again, it's what I said before. Success means I had a successful day today. And
because I followed my daily practice.
Yeah, because if you're around people who love and support you, if you're physically healthy, and if you're grateful, those three things means that what they mean is you're going to have a ton of great ideas in the long run. And I can say every 6 months, my life has been so much. I don't want to say better, because my life was good 6 months ago, but it's just different and interesting and exciting. And I'm not bragging about it. Like, Claudia, you've seen it happen.
No, I will say, when I met you in 2009 and you finally had an apartment, you weren't living in hotels. And
by the way, the only reason I moved into apartment, I was living in a hotel. I was living in the Chelsea Hotel in New York, where I had lived for many years in the 90s before I was first married. But then I started going out with this girl before I met you, and she was really disturbed by the Chelsea Hotel because it's disgusting. Like, it's a very artistic kind of hotel, but there you could find condoms on the staircase or whatever. And so she was really disturbed by this. She actually was a psychiatrist for a living, and she went to her psychiatrist, and her psychiatrist said, oh, he doesn't know how to have roots because he lives in a hotel. And I tried to explain to her, no, this was my roots before I got married. I went back to my roots. I'm the most rooted guy you could possibly meet. And she's like, no, you have to move into an apartment. So it was when you met me, Claudia, it was actually the first time I had ever lived in an apartment by myself. And I was, how old was I? I was 41 years old.
Yes, and I guess I'm grateful for this woman then, because I had an apartment to move into too. I had my own home in New Jersey, but we realized pretty quickly that we wanted to be together, that it was working. And I saw from you in the beginning you weren't really doing that much. I remember you taking a lot of phone calls and being on the computer, playing chess a lot, but there wasn't that much happening in your life, and there were people around you, friends, sort of pushing you to start writing and to tell your stories, me included, and saying, James, you got to start writing, and you didn't really want to. What was happening? I mean, you were doing your daily practice. What was happening?
Well, yeah, I was still thinking, I need to be in the business world, or I need to start a hedge fund or start some. I remember at one point I started an online dating service, and actually I had raised about $500,000 for it. And the day we were going to kind of launch, I literally woke up next to you shaking because I felt to myself, this is a really bad idea, and 2 years from now, I'm going to have to explain to all of these investors how I lost all their money. Because it was a dating service on top of Twitter, and the whole idea of online dating is that initially you're anonymous, but on Twitter, people are mostly use their real names. So I actually returned all the money I had raised, and I was really depressed after that, too. So, but, it was an idea. I was trying different ideas. But then at some point, I was running low on money again, and I had no ideas. I was just lost. And, other than, of course, you in my life, we had just gotten married. And so I felt like
we were in a honeymoon sort of period, too.
Yeah, but,
we couldn't unglue from each other that much at that time.
But, getting married is anxiety-producing because I felt like, now I have to think ahead. Like, I want to make sure that this works out. So I had to think, how am I going to make money? And I got kind of...
But I think you may be an anxious kind of person because I wasn't anxious, or maybe I was, I don't know, feeling like you would figure it out, but I had my own job. I was trying to figure it out myself. I felt pretty good about all of that.
I think I am an anxious sort of person, and for me, what happened was I started doing this daily practice again, which I had done in the past, and it had worked, but then I would have stopped doing it, and things would fall apart. So I started doing this daily practice again. Well, the first thing that happened was I started being really honest and telling my stories because I figured I couldn't be the only one who this economy has totally turned upside down. And so I started writing these stories, and people were like, how could you, this is like watching a train wreck in motion. Like all these people who had known me for years were like, how could you write all these honest stories? Like, how could you admit to all of this? And I was writing it on my blog at jamesaltucher.com. I write them now mostly on my email newsletter. And
which people can sign up for where?
At jamesaltucher.com. So, and I was, I started writing all these stories, and people would say on Twitter, like, oh my gosh, this is like watching a train wreck in slow motion. And then secretly, they would then email me and say, don't worry, dude, I smoked crack. Don't tell anybody. And
What else have some people confessed to you? Tell us some secrets.
People confess to everything, like drugs, prostitutes, offshore bank accounts, bankruptcies, jail sentences. I get it every day, and I don't make fun of these people. This serious stuff.
But this was especially happening to you when you started getting honest.
Right. When I started getting honest, it's really weird what happened. I became a trusted source. Everyone realized, look, the whole business world and maybe the whole world, everybody's in pain. And so what they do is they wear the masks that they think they can show the world so that the world won't see their pain or the world won't touch their pain. So
would you say it's like living a double life, like you present yourself in one way?
Yeah, it's totally like living a double life. Like, you basically hide the things you're scared about. And so you live this double life, and it takes a lot of mental energy, like actual calories burnt in your brain. It takes a lot of energy to live a double life. And I will tell you, most people live triple or quadruple lives. So, to be honest, people suddenly said, oh, he could do it. If he could do that, I can do it. So a lot of other people started being a little bit more honest, being more forthcoming, and they started seeing the results. And then that's when I wrote about this daily practice. That was 4 years ago I first wrote about it. And now I get, you see the emails. I get
that post was called How to Be the Luckiest Person Alive.
Yeah, and then I wrote
you
about...
You wrote it, I believe, in 2010 or
11.
Or 11, and it went viral. It was one of those posts that really spread out.
It did, and I wrote about it in more detail in the book Choose Yourself. We wrote about it together in The Power of No, which I encourage people to buy. Now, I will plug our book that we just released, The Power of No.
Yes, and also, if you see it in a Barnes & Nobles, please send me a photograph, because I'm making a collage, and so that would be wonderful.
And so
end of flag.
So I get all the emails. This is years later after I first wrote about this. And Claudia, you see how many emails I get because actually you've
people
set up.
Actually tell you you've saved my life. People actually say those words to you.
Yeah, and there's, and I'm really grateful for that, because I hope for every one person who sends me an email, and I get a lot of them, there's probably a lot more on top of that who don't send me an email, which is fine also.
Now,
And,
you also attracted a lot of haters.
yeah, I don't understand that part, but I don't think about it either. Like, I don't give
You
any
put the
energy.
focus on the positive.
Yeah, because I know I have a positive mess. It's not like I always say I'm not giving advice. I'm only saying what's worked for me. So there's no BS. I am not recommending anything. I'm only telling you what has worked for me, and it's worked in amazing ways, and I'm so actually thankful. Like, I compare even the people in my life now to the people in my life 5 years ago. It's 100% different. It's like I have
A reshuffling.
yeah, it's like I have this brand new loving family of friends and colleagues and family and everything, and it's just amazing, and I feel healthier. Obviously, we're constantly working on new ideas. I mean, even this podcast is just a few months old, but it's been like a huge, it's been a really wonderful thing for me. Like, I love it.
James, I think it's pretty clear what your why is, the why behind how this has worked for you, and you don't want to preach anything. You're just sharing, and you are grateful to see it working for whoever it might work, and your message. But I want to go back a little bit to your writing, because I was at a dinner not so long ago with you and a bunch of other people, and someone at that dinner said, if it's James Altucher, you'll recognize the writing, because it's not just any writing, it's special. It has that extra oomph. It has that first line that you will not be able to resist, and you'll have to keep reading, and you'll always be shocked almost by the last line. There's something special to your writing. There's a craft and something you study. And who are your influences? How did you get to that?
It's a funny question, because people ask me like, "Oh, what author can you recommend?" And I'll get to an author or two in a second, but the reality is you have to read an enormous amount if you want to be a good writer. If you want to be good at anything, you have to study the craft. So I read probably hundreds of books a year, and I spend anywhere from 30 minutes to 200 minutes a day reading. You wake up early, you stay up late, whatever it takes. You still make sure you get your 8 hours of sleep, but any spare moment I have, I read. And I
can plug in a little story. Yesterday, for example, you had a very long podcast. We had a radio show. You had business. You wrote 4 different essays or things to publish in different places. You had a lot of phone calls to take. And when we finally went to sleep to get our 8 hours of sleep, you were reading. And I wanted some attention, and you couldn't get past the first line because I kept asking you questions, because I just wanted some James Altucher energy for me. And you had a hard time. You really wanted to read, and it took about 7 questions for you to finally turn the iPad off and talk to me. Yeah.
Well, and that's a good example actually of studying the craft. So the book was Chang Ray Lee. The title was Native Speaker, and I think he's actually from Korea, but I'm not totally sure. I just started this book. And the first line, if I remember correctly, was when my wife left me, she left me a list of everything she thought about me. And so that's the kind of line where...
Or was it everything I needed to change?
No, it wasn't everything I needed to change, because then I read later on this morning. It wasn't things. It was just everything she thought about me. It was a list of items she thought about him. And
so you get really intrigued. You want to know, what did she think about him?
Right, but then what I get intrigued about is the author himself thinking of that first line. Like, that's studying the craft. Like, why did he pick... And not only that... That first line was the only line in the paragraph. So he wanted to really highlight that line to kind of drag you into the book. Now, it takes more than one line to make someone read 200 pages of a book.
What is the first line that you like from your writing? Can you go back to one first line that maybe you liked?
I don't remember. I really like this one article about where I was visiting Rikers Island on a bus at 3 a.m, and at the bus stop, there were all these prostitutes waiting for people to get out of Rikers Island. So that was where their customers were coming from. And I think the first line of that was sort of fun. I have another book that I self-published called that nobody's read really, called the Choose Yourself Stories, where I have my more kind of like raw, almost literary style stories. And I think all of the stories there they were really good and fun for me to write. But
I'm reading one here that I like. It says, "Admit it, you were jealous of Bernie Madoff." And that is kind of an interesting line. I do kind of want to keep reading. Like, what do you mean? You always have that element of, or as I said in the beginning of the podcast, I wanted to die. Which
yes, I think that was the first line of Choose Yourself, right? Or
yes, in the first chapter, yes. Yeah,
and then I think on one of my posts today, the first line is "They fired me." Oh, so here's the first paragraph: "They fired me. They fired me as CEO. They fired me as a board member. Then they took away my shares, and now none of them ever talk to me." So
you also put yourself down a lot. So you start sort of like you're the underdog.
Yeah, but it's because everybody's the underdog. Like, you know, we all go to movies like called Superman or the X-Men or whatever, but like those things don't actually, like superheroes don't actually exist in real life. We're all kind of, you know, combinations of tragedy and comedy. And, you know, we all hope for better in our lives, and we all also hope for better ways of dealing with our current life. And, you know, I think too many times pundits, let's say financial pundits or political pundits or self-help gurus or whatever, they come from this pedestal where I don't know if I should trust them. I don't know if this worked for them. Maybe they only made money because they're selling advice. So for me now, I know over the past 5 years, you know, 5 years ago I was broke, you know, around the time, actually, Claudia, when we met. And since then, I'll admit it, I've made an enormous amount of money by doing this daily practice, you know, more than I've ever made before by doing this daily practice, and I know it's attributed to this. And I haven't started a business. It's all through all sorts of different ways. You come up with so many ideas, and you get so clever at coming up with different income streams and different possibilities and different deals that it really pays off. And so what people want to see is a story. So a story starts off with someone who's either in an okay situation or a bad situation, and the situation then gets worse, and then you go from worse to better. And life itself is like that. So yes. I was on the floor considering committing suicide at my lowest point, and now here I am, so lucky. I'm doing this podcast. I'm doing this podcast with you, who I love. I love the people I work with, and it's really
because of the daily practice.
Yeah, I attribute it to that. For me, maybe other people, I don't know. Maybe other people need to meditate 10 hours a day or exercise in the gym 10 hours a day. I don't know. This is what's worked for me, and I know. The only other thing I can say is it's worked for a lot of other people because I get the emails from them. That's Otherwise, right. I wouldn't know if it's worked for anybody else.
So it's a bit like a hero's journey.
Yeah.
The going on a quest, the starting from fear and resistance and having to figure something out and failing and in your case, failing again and again and again.
I've been a huge failure. Well, and like one of the things I write in Choose Yourself is, life is a sentence of failures punctuated only by the briefest of successes.
I love that. I was just going to say that because it's one of the most beautiful sentences I've ever read from you.
And for all I know, I think I stole that from somebody, but whatever. If it works, I'll use it. So
do you still, because you had this tip for writers, write whatever you want, start in the middle, and then when you're finished writing, take off the first paragraph and the last. Do you still do that now that you know the craft and you've been writing for 3 hours a day for 5 years nonstop?
100% of my articles, so the rule is you write your article and then you always have to rewrite. So here's the first rewrite. Take away the first paragraph and take away the last paragraph, and I guarantee you your article will be better. And then from there, I'll rewrite further. My final post, like today, my final word count was about 60% less than my original word count, because that's how much I rewrite. I try to carve out every single word, sentence, paragraph that is not useful. And you know what's really interesting is that the sentences that I tend to take out the most are kind of the poetic ones, because you sort of realize that poetry is mostly BS. And whenever you try too hard to be poetic, it usually adds nothing to the content of what you're trying to say. So you have to be really brutal with yourself. And the saying is you have to kill your darlings. So very often that's where I start now, because I don't want to waste too much time rewriting. I just like to post and get that feedback.
That's right. Yes.
But
yes, and you also say start in the middle. If you're confused, if you don't know where to start, then just go for the middle. Go for whatever idea comes to your head.
Yeah, right. So for instance, like in this post today, I didn't have to start off saying, oh, well, I started this business. Here's what the business did. Here's what I did poorly. I started off, they
being
fired me.
Right. Yeah, that's more interesting, too.
I started at the end. They fired me. I really blew it. So
you get to the meat of it.
Yes. And that's that, we live in a world where there's so many opportunities for people to listen to great content. I want to make sure my content is the best. I want to, not that
why don't we come up with 10 ideas of 10 lines that could be really good starters? Like I wanted to die, or...
Yeah, I wanted to die.
I wanted to kiss her.
Yeah.
Is that a good first line?
Well, I wanted to kiss her, but I knew, or I wanted to kiss her, but I didn't know how, or I leaned in to kiss her and she pushed my face away. That's a great
I love that
line.
one. Yes, that's a nice one.
Another one is, on the morning of the worst day of my life, I had no idea what was going to happen next.
Yeah, or on the morning of the worst day of my life, the river flooded my living room.
Yeah, or the river flooded my living room, and I knew then that I was completely ruined. Or it's funny. A great line, and I this is why I love reading. I love reading good writers. A great line is, the day she left me, all she left me with was a list of all the things she thought about me. Like, that's a great
right. So still thinking on the river. The river flooded my house, and as the current receded, I found my wedding ring.
Yeah, that's good.
That's better. That actually happened to you.
That happened to me, although you just gave the beginning, middle, and end of the story in one line. So,
right, so I went too far.
You have to be a little careful. But yes, that's a good line, too. But then you have to kind of explain what happened.
Is there any? I know that you like Dennis Johnson very much as a writer. Who I actually, whenever I had a moment to really calm down and read, I couldn't believe the guy. And is there a line you have that you like from him?
Yes, but I can't say it because I've stolen it actually several times. So I don't want to say it. But if you read, most Dennis Johnson books are very good, but he has a collection of short stories called Jesus' Son, and it's about a drug addict who's just trying to kind of get by, and all the stories are interconnected, and you never actually know the real name of the main character. You just know what he's called. They made a movie about the book. It's a very thin, small book, but it is by far the most beautiful book of stories ever written. And I remember, it's funny, when the book was published, I think it was like 1993 or 1994, I specifically went out to the bookstore to get it because I had already read many of the stories in magazines and stuff. And I read last year, this is just last year, Chuck Palahniuk, who wrote Fight Club and a lot of other novels, he said that he read the book Jesus' Son over 300 times.
Wow.
And that's probably the same number of times I've read the book. I probably read it every couple of days, or at least read stories from it every couple of days. So if I'm going to recommend any book, it's that. But I also just recommend, try to read at least like a book a week or 2 books a week or whatever. And don't be afraid, by the way, to stop reading a book once it gets boring. Like I do that all the time too. So, but anyway, Claudia, I want to. My voice is getting sore. But
yes, I can hear that. I have gotten a lot out of you. I realize I've been a tough interviewer, perhaps.
Do you think I left anything out? Should we talk about anything else?
No, I think I pushed it. I think it's okay. Okay.
So I hope if this post is useful, here's what I hope people do. They go to jamesaltucher.com. There's a contact button. Well, first, sign up for my email list, because that's now, I don't even put stuff on my blog anymore, really. Once a week I do, but most of my stories I put on my email list. Please sign up for my email newsletter, or contact me through my contact button and tell me you like this podcast. And I also want to say I'm really grateful for all the listeners. This is the 7th month of this podcast. It's grown.
Congratulations. This is really good.
Every single week has been bigger than the week before. I've been really happy with it. And Claudia, my love.
And you've been very happy with all the feedback and how many people have written to you, and every email gets read and they ask Altucher, answer questions. It's been a good journey.
Yeah, it's been fun. And again, 6 months ago, it was totally different. Like every 6 months. So I can't wait to see what happens 6 months from now. And also, you can hear Claudia and me every Wednesday at 1 p.m. at HeyHouseRadio.com.
Yes.
We have a live show where we take in call-ins. So, and we have that for the next 2 months at least, I think. So, Claudia, I love you very much. I've loved you.
Thank you. I love you
since
too,
the first
honey.
day I've seen you. And I'm glad you could join me on this podcast. So thanks very much.
Sweet. Thank you. Love you too.
For more from James, check out The James Altucher Show on the Stansberry Radio Network at stansberryradio.com and get yourself on the free insiders list today.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power, so how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/advance. That's oracle.com/advance. oracle.com/advance.